welcome to Spirit Sessions View of the Light, everyone. Come on in. Let's get a little saging. Let go of all that resistance and fear and doubt right now. Pulling it all in. Come on in, family. We're going to have a fun day today. We've got Barry Littleton. Whoa! And
Greetings,
Barry,
greetings.
I so gotta tell you that some of the videos, I always love them and they're always validating, but other times it's like, oh my God, I need to watch this one six more times. I got to go over my notes. And I love that. I love because you put me on
Oh,
the edge. You know what I
oh,
mean? Stretch
oh,
me
oh, thank
farther.
you. Thank you. I
So
appreciate that.
I want everyone to go to YouTube and like our channel, but go and like Barry's channel as well. And you too can be stretched beyond and stuff. And so, Rhonda, tell us, why have you brought Barry to our show today?
Well, Barry is an aware experiencer, and he's aware of all sorts of things. And it just happened I was, you know, flipping the internet, flipping through my Facebook feed, and I saw that he had posted a video on the Sasquatch and the Sasquatch fairy knots that the horse that Barry was explaining how the Sasquatch visit the horses and put these wonderful fairy knots in and the connection. So it made me think, oh yeah, we haven't seen Barry for a little long time. So that's really cool because I get fairy knots in my horses' manes, and well, that's what we call them up here.
Uh-huh.
So
Wow.
I just wanted to know, Barry, what's going on now? And maybe you could, for those people that weren't watching us earlier, explain how you became an aware experience. And you've had a really, really interesting life. So we want kind of just give us the Reader's Digest condensed version of how you became this aware experiencer and how you became here.
I had, started having encounters and experiences when I was very, very young. Like I think so many people. And what's cool since I've come forward is I've talked to so many people now that by no means am I special. This is very, very common. It's just ignored by our culture and society. So I think about 75% of us are some type of contactee and unaware of it. So, I'm not special, maybe unique, but then we all are because we're so different. So that doesn't mean anything. But anyway, my experiences started when I was very young, and it started with things like waking up not at home, being in what seemed like another classroom where you're doing things on a table that are like psychokinetic, moving feathers, stirring water, these silver balls. That advanced into somebody that started popping up around the time I was about 5 to 7, and he would come around every now and again. And this individual I thought was a person. And then later on, I wind up seeing him on a craft when I was in the 6th grade, and he looked different. So I think that says a lot about it, more insectoid. So I think that says a lot about what these beings can actually do to all of us through the optic nerves, how they can kind of project a consciousness and something that they are not completely. And I'm not saying that was all malicious, but gives them a very good, easy way to blend in and interact with us and people that were coming around. I was always well supervised. So this individual was seen by other people, and I thought he was a child like me because he was playing with me, doing things I was interested in. So I perceived him to be a kid like me. He was about my size, but I found out later that's not the case. On this craft, he was different in terms of, one, he was a telepath like me, and you thought there was probably other kids that could do it, but they just weren't. You were like something like not aware of it, that not
Right.
everybody's doing it. Yeah, yeah. So that's one instant there, and then that's what I would call childhood experiences. And after that one, when I was in the 6th grade, which on my YouTube channel is called the Acid Rain Experience, when the contact actually crossed over into my daily life. It was real as could be anyway. It was like a waking experience. It's physical, but it's not the same as when it actually crosses over and the information and science starts really going together. So that's in my adult childhood experiences. Then I go into these what I call childhood experiences. Then I go into what's called adult onset experiences, which I only generally publicly only talk about the 4 that were physical, and they each involved missing time. It was about 4.5 hours each time. So it comes up
Yeah.
on nearly 20 hours of missing time on 4 of these encounters, and 3 of them somebody else was there. and they see the craft and, the missing time, and how it is that although when we talk about this now, it sounds fluid and it sounds cool, but at the same time, the experiences themselves were fractionated, even if they're physical, and it's right when it's happening, you're there, but then when you're removed from the craft, from the beings, the retention of the memory starts getting difficult the further you away get from the event. I'm talking about minutes later, it starts getting hard. It's a vibrational difference, the frequency difference, for real. And it's not that all of us that have not had these negative encounters are getting our minds wiped. I went through that, and so the person I was with, they're like, do we get wiped clean? I was like, no, there's something else going on here, and it's very difficult to retain it, and then also the elation you have after the encounter, all these things that happen, But the good thing is that for what we both experienced, that type of delusion is not shared. Those experiences are the ones that really stopped my world, and I've spent a lifetime trying to learn and understanding through science, especially, and also dealing with other people that have had encounters now, and that's kind of where it's at for me. I found a lot of things that I think represent the connection of both why these beings interacting with me, but also the Earth matrix itself. And also something I want to emphasize before we go any further is the organic nature of the positive contact I've had. The craft, there's a very organic nature to them. There's a symbiotic connection between them, the craft, the Earth. What I've learned about how some of these craft are actually grown over what we would call a black hole, and what that really is, how that's a Mako, and how black holes and how science and what they collected from the data is not what we're hearing. And I've done that through talking to a couple of astrophysicists.
That's the stuff I'm really trying hard to understand. That's cool stuff. Yeah, go ahead and elaborate.
Okay, well, for starters, we hear so often, when I first heard about the Akashic Records, I can only speak for myself, it was through Edgar Casey, and it's the records of space and time, and now that's it. Now that is such a major point for New Age and for spiritualism, and it's a good one. But really, what are the Akashic Records? We have many people that said they've experienced it. But okay, when giving to this, and I had learned this talking with a gentleman that took interest in my experiences was Dr. Rudy Shields, and we wound up talking a lot. And I was familiar with his take on what black holes were, which he calls Makos, magnospherical, eternally collapsing objects. Okay, but really what that is showing that actually the black hole itself is not infinite. And that's what we're always told, that just, I remember when I was a kid, there was this movie called The Black Hole, man. The guy from Psycho, Anthony Perkins, was in it. And everything was being sucked into the black hole and crushed. And, and that's what we always think. And theoretically, that's what they're saying. But Dr. Shields and them are looking at the observatory data. And what the data is showing is something different. And a lot of these Makos are actually glowing from the inside. So they're emitting a light also. They're emitting a light also. So I'll turn that off. But I muted that. When dealing with this, what actually happens with the Mako itself is called, sorry.
It's okay.
There, I got it. It's off now. Sorry. Okay, the Mako itself is got something around it. So if this is a black hole, it's got something around it that forms, it's called not just the orogosphere by our science, but it's also the quantum hologram. So let's say something goes into the Mako. It goes into the Mako. This pin is a copy of it made on the surface itself. And there's a mechanism in there that is the Mako itself that stores the information. So actually, these black holes are the hard drives of the universe. Okay, so they're storing the information. And so that is actually a copy of the universe is being wrapped around the Mako itself, information-wise. Now, taking that a step further, okay, these Makos, what they're designed of, is something quite similar to what we have in our brains, and crossing this into brain research. I find that fascinating because I have a very much interested in the brain because I took 4 catastrophic traumatic brain injuries in 2010 and died on the way to the hospital. And that's one of the reasons I speak out now. And that's long after all these experiences has happened to me. So they're different, but it definitely gave me an interest in brain research. Anyway, as far as that goes, we're going to stick to what's called microtubules, brain microtubules. They're throughout our body, all right? And something about the nature of the universe is it occurs, these conscious waves that are quite similar to brain waves, but the quantum physicists are calling it conscious waves. And they occur in 2 ways. Spherical, which we see in this universe all the time, things based on the spin, and also helical, okay? Helix. So those are the 2 ways that they form here. Now, going into our brains, the microtubules are shaped 2 ways. And the microtubules actually make up the neuron network of our brain. But the microtubules are shaped 2 ways, spherical and helical. Okay? So they respond to these conscious waves. And which conscious waves is another way of saying the creator. Kind of like saying, the Force in Star Wars. That's the creator. They just don't want to say that. I mean, but this is very interesting. So when we start dealing with the concept of these black holes, the way they're going to be accessed is consciously. That's the only way. And as far as their distance away, as far as whatever space is, it's not as much. Because when I started asking around, I said, well, what exactly do you scientists say that the speed of thought is? I kept getting 100,000 times the speed of light.
Wow.
That's pretty intense.
That's pretty fast.
Feels like that sometimes, though. Yeah.
Before you even think of it.
So in that way, when dealing with these black holes, that's how it would be done, is consciously. And not just that, but some of these craft I've described that are actually this alloy, this compound that's grown over, or at least in space, in the area of one of these black holes. So therefore the engine is like displaced, temporally displaced, but it's also alive in that way too. So think of it, before I shut up, there's every galaxy has a black hole in the middle, a Mako in the middle. Right. And actually the light that's coming out of the Mako, they're saying this, I'm hearing the term cosmic intelligence. It's how cosmic intelligence is expressed in every galaxy. But really it's the creator and the divine field. That's what it is. Anyway, I'll shut up from there. Does that answer your question at all, Karen? No?
That is cool.
Yeah.
And,
It's
what science is showing us. So we think about the Akashic Records. Right. You've got that quantum hologram that is storing all the information in the universe that can be accessed consciously.
Right.
And that takes it to a whole nother level. I had to deal with some of these beings that I've been dealing with. One, they're not like the ones I was hearing about in the media. So I was younger, that used to stress me out. They weren't grays, they weren't reptilians, they were none of these things. And they weren't negative encounters either. And I wanted to know more about what actually were they from. And I was getting other galaxies, but things didn't make sense. They were saying I wouldn't understand at first. That insectoid told me that. So you won't understand, but I thought I was heavy. I was a kid watching Star Trek and Doctor Who. I mean, yeah, I could understand it, but then he lays it on me and I didn't understand. He says, go 900 million light years out beyond the space-time continuum. And that's telepathically coming through and with images, and no, I didn't understand. But then he's, focus on the 3rd and 4th planets outside of Pluto. And at that time, we start he's answering telepathically before I can form the questions and saying, no, your science hasn't found that yet either. Then forward it like 20 years, they found those trans-Neptunian objects out there past Pluto. That's another Kuiper belt. And there are a couple of them out there. They're almost the size of Pluto. And I was saying, okay, he's saying there was a jumping off basis for your solar system because we have problems with the density. So I know what that means now. When we're dealing with light beings and different thought forms that are either on just a higher vibration, this solar system is dense, especially this planet. So anyway, going back with that, so just that's the connection with the black holes, how we can access them through our brains, through what they're constructed of, and how the ships are also made of that too. And like I was going to say, I had to deal with some of these beings are coming from different universes.
Yeah.
And I was on board a craft that, I saw two different experiences. One, I saw this craft morph from a normal looking metal saucer type of thing to these crystals that would be called a tripyramidal Merkaba. If you look at J.J. Hertog's Keys of Enoch book, he's got some excellent illustrations of it in there, similar to what I saw very much. And I've got illustrations of I had done by Kasara did for me. It's on my YouTube channel. You can look that up on there. Anyway, but I was on another one that this was a more of a conscious craft also, although physical. But one of the rooms, and I don't know, I call it, for lack of a better word, a bridge. There's a beam, a circular beam, black beam in the middle. It seemed the most stable thing in the room. So I tended to stand close to that. And around are these like wormholes, opening and closing, statically looking, opening and closing. A light beam jumps in front of me, jumps into one and comes out the other one, like instantaneously. And now I know what that was also a place where this craft could choose the path of most coherency to another universe.
Right.
Maybe not just a dimension, another universe. And some of them are based different. We're based on the spin here. Like I just said, spherical, everything is spin here. And we go into another universe, you might be dealing a universe that's based on the cubicle, the pyramid, any of these, the pentagon, the octagon, rather, excuse me. I mean, any of these things that are considered sacred geometry. That could be the shape of a universe, and that gets heavy, This craft that I saw changed from a metal ship into these living crystals is what it looked like, a cross between a huge molecule and these living crystals moving in the sky. And I'll tell you, ladies, it's one thing to talk about it now, but then to see it, I was young. I was like 18, 19. It really put me on edge.
Like if somebody
I was reading everything, and trying to find out something else that somebody else had to have seen something like this. Explain it, Yeah. But now I know what this thing was doing was, before it made this jump, it was actually changing and having a pattern of unfoldment to meet the destination of the universe it was going to. So this is heavy, what we're talking about here. Yeah, and we're dealing with consciousness. It just takes it to a whole nother level, And that's
I got
all
a
I'll say.
question.
Sorry, I feel like I've talked too much already about that. I don't want to ruin the show by dominating on something people probably don't want to hear.
Come to listen to us.
In your energy field, I'm not looking into your Akashic field because I don't have permission and I wasn't looking, but it is an Akashic thing that's in your energy field where I could read it. And I was looking this morning and I was seeing you in another time in another universe, and you were calling up a ship being that was more kind of like a whale, but it was a ship. But so it was a conscious, it was a being. And then when you called it up to the boarding place, you became one with it, and then you went off into an area for a specific reason. And that's all I caught a glance of. And it was like, wow, what is even that for? But now you're explaining about the room. Maybe you needed certain dynamics or something to end up in the universe. I don't know. What do you think?
You remember also that since these are living life forms, I'm pretty sure that they reproduce. And on board a craft like the one I'm describing, the first room I was like, first it's light suck me in. But that immediate room there was very large. I've got illustrations done of it, but it still doesn't give you the
I'm seeing a cell.
It's like a cargo bay.
Like an amoeba in the sky, and it's like a living being, like an amoeba, and so it changes and replicates that way, like almost through meiosis.
Now those are something that they call the cosmic critters, energy zoa. Are you familiar with that? Some of those were seen around the NASA tether incident, where you see those bubbles around the tether in space, like near the moon.
Yeah.
That's the same thing, and also those things inhabit our atmosphere. They're called, you can look them up as energy zoa. I've done a video on my channel on that too.
Okay.
Energy zoa are critters, but they very much look like amoebas, kind of the same way that the rods look like flagellum, if you really look at them.
The flying rods?
Yeah, the flying rods. If you look at the flying rods.
I got a video to send you.
Yeah, and check out the diagram of the flagella. They look quite similar. So these are things, and I had a little experience with that when I was younger. I got into building these cloud busters based on what I was finding out Trevor Constable was doing. I was busting clouds and doing other stuff with them, and then I started messing with nimbus clouds and trying to bust those, and started, not always feeling so great afterwards. And one is I wasn't grounding into running water, the system. So that was one problem. But I was just young. I didn't know fully what I was doing. But another thing would be, I found out later that when you're doing nimbus clouds like that, these machines start collecting something called DOR, deadly orgone radiation, that holds those clouds together. And you've got some of the beings we just described, these energy zoa or whatever, that start feeding on that DOR that's collecting in that machine. And they start affecting the user. So I hear a lot of talk about orgone and this and that, but I don't hear people talking about anything I just told you. All right. So anyway, and I mean, no offense to anyone, but I mean, it's a thing when people are messing with some of this stuff, be aware of. Because when I started taking pictures with the old Kodak back then in the early 90s with an infrared and an ultraviolet filter, you start picking up these things around the machines. And they look like what you just described, some type of amoebas near it.
So that's what I was wondering, if those light ships were, what I saw the other night, were like that, or were they, I don't know, like they phase in and out. And sometimes I've seen them still and they'd be there for like 5-10 minutes and they kind of phase a little bit in, and then almost like a rotating on a lighthouse, the beam gets less and then it gets bright, and then the beam gets less. But it was huge orange. I mean, I've got pictures of orange blobs. Like, it's not that exciting. So yeah. Oh, there's my spaceship. It looks like an orange blob. Yeah. Who cares?
I mean, that's cool though.
Your experience, you're describing a higher level of being than just something that would be like looking into a petri dish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're describing something more like higher vibrational plasmic forms, life forms, like high energy plasma. And technically, they say that I've heard interesting things, like, for example, the remote viewer John Vivinko. I did a video with him, and he had described, we were talking privately, and I had him bring up in this video also, that what they were seeing, that when you have actually a wormhole, a portal on the other side, you've got like thousands of entities trying to squeeze through all at once. So it's like the four of us trying to stick our head through a mustard bottle or a ketchup bottle. It'd be really hard, But when they actually do, those that do squeeze through emerge in this dimension in the collective consciousness form of an orb. So I think that's another way to describe some of these orbs. And there are other explanations for them by far, but there's a lot going on there, And especially like when you get somewhere like that as SETI Ranch, and something I had seen in that mountain, this device, this crystalline device that's producing these orbs, gets into your field of awareness. I mean, it could be microscopic, it doesn't matter, but it will push your perception forward. There's something about that device in that mountain that is actually, if you look at J.J. Hertog's book, I found something I'm talking about it. It's called an ore station. And if you look on my channel, there's a video, the SETI Ranch playlist. There's a video I did with John Vivinko on there. We talked about that. I wanted to meet him most of all in 2019 because when I went to speak there in 2016, I just got blown away. Okay, perceptually, I'm not a young cat, and I'm not at the age where I thought I was still going to have these physical experiences that just stop my world. I go out there and get blown away. But when I got invited to speak again in 2017, I wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with. I don't sleep well, but I had feelings I was in that mountain and some other things were happening. I was seeing this device. And so I did a regression 2 weeks before I went out there, specifically for that place. So I would know what I was dealing with, especially the Sasquatch factor.
Yeah. So
anyway, but
yeah, we'll talk about that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So but that I described this device. I saw it, and I've done videos on this. It's all on my channel. But John, 2 years later, put out a video called Remote Viewing the Ancient Aliens of the Ascetti Ranch. And his team described this device also. So he's somebody I wanted to meet for sure. And then I found in this book, this Keys of Enoch book, them describing what this device actually is. So it's just food for thought, you know, and I'm not wrong, ladies, because that year of 2017, we had to do something. The presenters had to do something that was called, of course, a sky watch. And I don't mean to offend anyone, but look, for me, I have no interest in that, because once these ships come too close and you're losing like 20 hours of your life, it's not all that, hey, even if it's a good experience, because it messes with your normal life a lot. So wishing those things in when you don't know who it is that's coming in, be real careful, you know?
Right.
So anyway, we had to do this sky watch, and I had to lead one of the nights. So what I did was I introduced everyone to this. It's a pretty large conference. I introduced everybody to this pineal pranayama exercise that I've always liked.
Ooh, neat.
And everyone did it. It was hard to demonstrate because it looks ridiculous, but it's a good one. And right after that, you know, and you've got so many psychics and mediums in the attendees there. It's really cool. Yeah. And so many, I'm going to say this, like over 20 people were going, I'm seeing this grid. I'm seeing a grid after we did this. And I knew it was this grid being projected by that device inside that mountain. And it makes me wonder, from a past civilization, when this was type 1, how many of these devices, these ore stations, are still functioning. I suspect one is functioning at Mount Shasta that you just mentioned. And there are other places too, maybe
my house, behind my house. Swear to God.
And you know, and when certain people get around it with the right DNA, the right vibration, the right soul level, I mean, we activate these things. That's one of the things that happens, you know. And I think that device, that grid everybody saw, is scanning people's life memories, this life. And then you haven't seen a cat being, here you go. You haven't seen a Bigfoot, here you go. How many people have just, I saw a Sasquatch walking in a field out there and it dematerialized. How many people have you heard say that? Probably dozens. Think about it. It's just food for thought.
Yeah.
All right, I'll be quiet.
So
This isn't even what you all want to talk about. You got specific things, and I've dominated this.
No, this is
Talking
exactly
too
what
much.
we wanted to talk about. Whatever comes up, and that
Yeah.
we found that that's really cool. So obviously there's a Sasquatch alien or sort of whatever it is connection, whether they are living in a different dimension and just in this earth, just sort of a higher vibration here, and they can come back and forth through whatever portals are created, or they create their own portals to materialize and dematerialize. Is that what you think, or is that a fair?
You know, I gotta be honest. I go back and forth on this, and it's so. First of all, you've got all these different types of them, and they're not all animalistic. There's something else going on, the paranormal factor. What's going on with the mind speak and the telepathy? I've experienced telepathy from several different non-humans, and what I got from the one out there at that ranch was strong. It was very strong, and it was a much stronger telepath than I. I've heard some things. Sorry, I'll answer your question. I'm going too far left. I've heard of some of them having a connection to trees.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And all the way from possibly them having chlorophyll in their blood of some type that gives them abilities to have their hair is somewhat translucent. And you see more on the green spectrum. If you see the people that claim to have the Sasquatch hair, it's translucent, and it's got this almost to the point, but it's light green in there, pigment-wise. Boy, that'd be great for the forest and diffracting things, the way like Predator does on those movies. It'd be very close to that, blending in, you know.
Or how on X-Files they kind of just disappeared into the trees.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And that's like a natural science there. There's a thing with the oil that have been found on those hairs, and the oil, you see some of those prints they're leaving, they produce a lot of oil. There's a certain refracting thing of light that oil and that type of hair will do. So it's a natural defense. or natural ability, I guess, for them, if nothing else. So that's one thing, how closely. And the gentleman I met named Tom Powell, we got to talk for a few hours. That's in 2017. And he's the first one that told me that. He said, well, they live in trees. I was like, well, what do you mean? Like a boreal? Or they make some cabins at the bottom, Gilligan's Island or something, And he says no, that they symbiotically merge with trees.
Yeah.
And when he said that, it just, some things make you vibrate weird. They feel strange. You know what I mean? And that's just something. So, and I think a lot. And then he starts saying, and they even shape shift into tree stumps. And I do know with an experience out there in 2017 that they do change, or at least something out there is a shapeshifter by all means that is connected to them. So that takes it to another level. And they didn't even have to do that. They could just bend down. How many people have you heard say they see something look like a tree stump and then it stands up? I mean, that's food for thought. So if that answers your question, I think that, there's perhaps not just an interdimensional connection, but an inner-earth connection with them as well.
And Cindy Eldridge says, I think there may be millions of layers of life forms in so many layers and dimensions and timelines. Mm-hmm. So, I think I kind of agree that there's so much of this earth that we see and so much of the spectrum we don't even have the ability to see and connect with, like that's here. And sometimes they cross into our world, whether on purpose or by accident, and we get glimpses of them.
Whoever that is, kudos. Brilliant statement, because as I've learned it, the earth is like the layers of an onion, dimensionally and frequency-wise. There's that many dimensions and things layered upon each other, and taking that and tying it into something that I spent a lot of time babbling about, the Mako itself, the Akashic Records, that is actually wrapped around in the same way, like an onion of that Mako itself, the information. So it's going to become the same type of layered effect, the information of the universe going from the beginning back to present. That's kind of how it's going to be. So when you access it, it would be the same way. And that's cool because when you look at a galaxy now and the spiral of it, or how they portray black holes to be, you can think about that information going around there, information around the center inside also. That's pretty, I think that's cool,
Yeah.
Not Edgar Casey, Edgar Mitchell. I don't want to get this wrong, but he had said this thing I had heard, and Ray Hernandez told me about it, what they called the barbecue effect. When he was coming back from the moon, that at one point he's looking out the window, and I guess the shuttle turns to stop it from burning, or the pod before it comes in. And he said that he looked out the window and saw like all the stars. There's so many. There's like no space between them, and they're swirling. And he felt like each light was connected, each star was connected to like a cell in his body or something like that.
Wow.
I mean, that's a heavy thing to say. I don't want to misquote the man, but he said something similar to that, enough to where we talk about accessing these Akashic records like we just did. It's cool. And so we're dealing with some of these craft, like the one you're dealing with. I'm sorry, you're Beth, right?
Rhonda.
Rhonda, sorry. Rhonda. You're Rhonda. Sorry.
Rhonda, Teresa, and Bex. Bex is the middle.
Okay, sorry. Okay, good. Okay, sorry. I only messed that up like 3 more times. Anyway, but I think it's worthwhile you kind of mentioning your experience that you had before we got on here, because it's very prevalent in terms of you've been seeing these ships for like all your life, and I think the information you've been getting every time on the superconscious and subconscious level is immense. And there's so many people listening to us right now and I get it all the time, these conferences, other places. Oh, I don't have contact experiences like you. I have contact experiences like you. And it's always those people that are emitting that energy that I call Artron energy. I stole that word from Doctor Who. But when you're on one of these craft and you're around these beings their life energy is symbiotically connected with the craft is emitting this energy, and also it's built around this Mako, okay? And it irradiates the cells of your body. And it does something. And I can detect it on other contactees many times. There's something different. They feel different. It's just this thing. You know what I mean? So it makes me suspect of some of these people that have great claims. I've been around them, but they don't have that Artron energy. Why not? Anyway, no, we won't go there. But so anyway, just
well,
the
that would be
information.
interesting if you could confirm. Do you feel it on me? Because I've had some strange experiences.
Yeah.
I can't promise that I can't remember going up into ships or anything, but I've had some weird experiences that from when I was 4 or 5 that I can remember that I keeps, you shouldn't have memories like that.
All three of you. Bev in the middle, I feel more like it's kind of like a earth energy, like I don't want to say fairy, but like nature spirit type of thing.
Mermaid?
Just feel more of that with you. Yeah. So anyway, but you all have that energy, a very high frequency, very much. I can tell you either had contact. I think for you represent that part of the population though, that just don't ever let anybody say, hey, don't do hypnosis. Man, who are they to tell you who you are to experiment and discover your own consciousness? Mm-hmm. Some of these things happen and are recorded by the superconsciousness and the subconsciousness, and we can access that if we get in the right frame of relaxation. That's all it is. Like, I tried myself to self-hypnotize myself. I got certified in it. And it was all so I could just try to get some of these fragmented pieces. I went for years saying, I'm not like Travis Walton. I'm not like this and that. I'm a conscious experiencer, and I was to a degree. But the truth is, for what I could remember, for what the amount of time that was missing was not, it wasn't that great. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things to plug in.
We got an hour this today. We all got an hour this today.
Yeah. So just maybe think about that, my friend. All right, getting some hypnosis done, especially for one of those crafts you saw that was like, man, it's, even if it's just like a minute. And anyone listening, you may have just seen one of these things for a couple of seconds, and someone standing right next to you couldn't see it. Yeah. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. They're doing very specific frequency adjusted, vibration adjusted contact. And now, so when we talked about things, we know it happens on the brainwave frequency a lot. We know space is a lot like brain waves and neurons and the structure of our brain now. Anyway.
That's so cool. Oh, Barry, so tell us what you're doing and where we can find you, because, we want to get that out and find out. You're on a YouTube channel. Is your website still under construction, or are you still working on it?
Yeah, forever probably. Maybe when these Mako stop functioning, I'll get that constructed. The website has still got links there. I've got most of my work is on YouTube. I've done a lot of stuff on Patreon. No nicknames, just Barry Littleton. If you go to the YouTube, it's like Shadow Band or something. So please look at the playlist. There's a lot of information on there, and that's a good place.
Yes, a fun place.
Cool. Are you going to do any conferences now that COVID's been all cured by the vaccine?
If I get invited, I probably will, most likely. I didn't think that I would ever do as many as I've done now. So anytime I get invited to one, I'm honored and glad to go. Fun. It's really a nice way to meet people, and it's not always. I just want to say that some of these conferences, it's not these big names we hear. It's the attendees. They're all contactees. They're all psychics. They're looking for answers just like me. And that's cool. That's when you can really interact with people. And that's what kind of changes things on the personal level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, I have a question because I'm just dying to know. You mentioned something about dreams earlier before we got on. And how do you know that you've had contact? Like, how do you know that they've made contact with you? Because I've had dreams, but I have nothing in my physical experience that it's just dreams, right? So, I've dreamt of like a triangular-shaped light ship outside my bedroom window. It was huge, and that happened once. And then I had a dream that I was in some sort of training school where we were learning how to move things with our minds and things like that. But I have no childhood memories. I have no when I was a kid, I would try to move pencils with my mind. Like I've always been fascinated with that. No clue why. It was just what I wanted to do. I always wanted to move things with my mind, but I haven't had any actual physical memory. I've seen a light ship here or there, but nothing profound. That's my question. How do you know?
Several things you just mentioned. One is you said that you jumped up and you saw a light ship. Did you dream you saw it, or you actually jumped up from your?
It was in a dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but you've seen them physically too, right?
yeah, like off in the distance, I'll see like, it's not a lot, but I've seen them in my life.
Same situation there. That's what you're seeing physically, and we don't know when that manifests on the dream time. Don't discount it at all, and like, although I talk about my physical experiences, I had some that were like that too, astral, dreamlike too. And we're dealing with beings that can bilocate us.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like from even if we're not sleeping. So that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But in that way, I would say that those experiences are very valid. And I've been on board a craft, and I've got an illustration. This is called on my channel. It's called the gyroscopic engine, and it's this light and this engine I was around. And then when I go upstairs, like there are these rails on the illustration, but they're really like decks. Mm-hmm. And when I get to the first one, there is a group of about 7 people there that are see-through, almost transparent. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they're going over and touching the light on that light coming up that's being projected by the engine. And remember what I told you about how these are constructed. It explains why a lot of experiencers say, well, I touched the light coming off that engine and it turned into a black hole. Mm. That's why. Anyway, but they were translucent, because I'm there and I'm suffering from something that they have called physical or temporal aphasia. And it's very sick. It's like worse than being seasick. Oh yeah. And it's something that, because the inside and outside of those craft are not the same dimension, and it's not totally suitable for these bodies. Mm-hmm. So I was getting very sick to the point to where it will disrupt the experience. But these people that were transparent, 3 of them, which I've come into contact with in my real life, life now. One of them I met a few years ago. She's well known in these circuits, not for the UFO thing, but her and some other people I've encountered now. Okay, but guess what? They weren't suffering from that temporal aphasia, about to throw up like I was, because they're in the dream body, the energy body. Oh, yeah, and it doesn't succumb to the same physical parameters and laws that this body does. Mm-hmm. So they're not dealing with that. It's not interfering with their experience. And at the same token, since you're dealing with consciousness, mm-hmm. and this light being emitted is conscious, they're joining with that and accessing the Akashic Records or whatever else it might be. So don't discount any of it. And I would recommend maybe try some hypnosis for yourself too. I mean, because just to focus on that and see what information has come through, because I think you've gotten a lot of it. There's a reason why you two are connected right now. Mm-hmm. I think you're both similar in that way. Never discount it. I think you've had a lot of interaction with multi-dimensional, interdimensional type of beings too. And sometimes they're not the separate things we think, whether it's space or interdimensional. Sometimes it doesn't matter because it's consciousness.
Right, absolutely. That's cool. Wow, thank you for that, because I really I questioned it. It's just always been like, okay, I have these crazy dreams all the time, vivid dreams all the time. I'm always dreaming. Dreams are my messages always. So
you're a dreamer. Yeah. That's extreme. That's a good power, and that means that, and think about it vibrationally. That is where they can meet us halfway. Yeah. It's easier for them. So yeah, I mean, I'd even keep a journal of it if you haven't already.
Yeah.
So,
I have. Dream time is much discounted, because that's where our loved ones come back to meet us, where it's like it's neutral field. Nobody gets terrified when you're dreaming. You just kind of accept it most of the time, So
unless Pennywise is hanging out, and then I'm out.
Oh, stop! Don't even put that in my consciousness.
That's what happens to me. He just shows up.
Oh God, clowns! Now that's what I'm afraid of.
That's exactly.
Well, you know what? That's interesting. How many contactees have issues with clowns?
Really?
Yes, I've met many now, and especially those of us that are melanin dominant contactees. A lot of those have very serious problems with clowns. Wow. And what it is something about these. I've heard about the Greys doing it. Them using a type of virtual reality through the optic nerves that they appeared like clowns. That's how they disguise themselves as clowns. Christine Dennett, Casara, she's done some interesting illustrations of that. Wow. Experiencers illustrations. But if it's a negative encounters, and that's something right now about this place we're living. I don't want to call it a prison planet. I don't want to upset people, but it sure does seem that way down here. And you've got so many negative forces, and just what we're inundated with brain-wise about negative encounters interferes with what's going on with the divine field. You may have higher beings trying to communicate with you, but you're tripped out. You've been absolutely saturated with all this, probes and reptilians, and it starts interfering with the power of our creative suggestion with what they're trying to communicate with to us. It's very serious down here. So people got to try to protect themselves and keep themselves, at least open in terms of what information is coming in, protected but open. Don't just let it turn in automatically something negative if it's not. That's our power of suggestion here is powerful.
Yes,
super.
But it's not all Boy Scouts or whatever they call it. It's not that either. I'm not saying that either. There's a negative factor here that's serious, and my heart goes out to those that have been exposed to these demonic forces, whether they're masquerading as extraterrestrials or whatever. I think that sucks. Having to deal with that here sucks. It's bad enough most of us incarnate here devoid of soul life memories when we're immortal souls. What kind of crap is that, man? That's like you graduate and you're in the 12th grade, but you can't remember kindergarten to 11th.
Right.
What is that?
Yeah.
Nancy wants to know, Barry, were you originally from Earth?
No, where on Earth are you originally from? Where?
I'm sorry, I can't read. I got my glasses too far back. Yeah.
I'm from their capital. That's all I'll say.
Right.
You look that up. That's where I'm from. I'm from the Midwest. Yeah,
Midwest,
yeah.
okay.
Definitely not at the most exciting place. So I'll say that.
That's way more exciting than where I am.
This is fascinating.
I doubt it.
Super. We'll have to have you back because
Yes.
we can just And so, like I say to everybody, you're invited up to visit me in Canada in 2024 when we get the total eclipse of the sun right here. Yeah. So.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, we'll be on.
Okay, so you're in Canada.
Yeah, I'm in Ontario. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like just be south of Ottawa. Apparently, the capital of UFOs in Eastern Ontario. So I'm gonna put that on my sign. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So here, but we have dark sky, which is super. Like maybe not as dark as that ECETI, but pretty dark here. Pretty dark sky here. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I've been to some dark places in my native state here, and also out there where sometimes you notice that there's not all that much space between the stars. There's so many of them.
Yeah, that's when you get to see them all. It's pretty cool. Like it was pretty cool last night when we walked down the backfield. Barry, Bex has a few more questions for you. Those hard ones.
The hard questions.
The hard ones.
You've only been warned about the first one. One of them's too
Oh,
basic.
not the first one you asked me. We were if they're like the one you asked me off the air. I was sucked, man. It's gonna be terrible.
Yeah. All right, so you know the
But we'll
first one.
take it.
So,
Let's start dancing.
so if you had to choose a song to be the theme song of your life, what would that be?
I can't believe of all of them you're gonna ask that one again.
But you can just repeat the answer.
You went
Just
straight
give us the answer you gave us.
I thought you went straight there. Oh man, I don't have one. I could just say one a song that I like. One of them it would be "We're in This Love Together" by Al Jarreau. I like that song.
That's a beautiful song.
But it doesn't represent my soul content or anything. It's just a good song,
That works. That's a good answer. See, so you made it through that one. The second one, I don't know how this will resonate with you, but we like to ask do you ever work with crystals? Like, what's your favorite crystal that you like to have around you?
I like this is a phantom quartz here. I keep that one around. Yeah, I like phantom corite skull.
Nice.
Looks like he's got a toupee.
Yeah.
Those are from Australia.
I love that.
Partner had given me.
Right.
I do. I enjoy all types, and that goes especially connected to like this rock. I think we talked about that last time. That I was given by what would now I could call a Nordic. And I clowned all the Nordics looking like Fabio quite a bit, and then I was unaware that these individuals I had dealt with when I was younger, and this craft was actually some of Nordic beings. So I'd eat a little crow on that. But I was when that rock was given to me, the this individual was in this store, okay? I was with my mother, and I get this rock. One of the conditions of me getting it is the individual gives me this card, a blue card for me to join the State Mineral and Gem Society of my native state. And, I didn't understand yet, and I would be connected to that again for years, but I didn't understand how connected they are to the crystals and to the gems and mineral and gems of this planet.
So
Yeah.
that's
And
how
especially like some people that have been to mines and things like that have had encounters there, quite a few. And I had a friend that her family were big time mineral collectors for the state here. And she had described an old man that worked at this mine in North Carolina, I believe it was, that was mined green beryl or green tourmaline, and I want to say black beryl or something like that.
Oh, neat.
But these two, actually, when you look at this, these two make one of the compounds that they make is this compound on them. That's one of Earth's few natural occurring quasi-crystals.
Right.
So there's something this old man was where I thought he just worked there, but I was getting ready to grab this, what I thought was a tire iron when I was a kid messing around. He was like way away, and he put in my mind, don't grab it. It's a snake. And she said, and then it started moving. And so when you start thinking about that, and she said, I thought he was just this kind of burned out guy that looked after the mind until he did that. Until he did that. And that's food for thought, or even something like there was a lady, what's her name? She's really famous. She's got a really big medicine wheel. She walks around. Oprah interviewed her a couple of times.
With the hair, right? With the gray hair.
Yeah, I mean, she used to run around with the Brat Pack. What was her name? Oh, anyway, she has a house.
McLean?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
yes.
That, yeah.
She has that ranch. I think it's in New Mexico, near that mine where all the crystals exploded. And I've heard her mentioning how she thinks some of the ships that come around there and all the stars are seen near her house there are somehow using the amplification of those crystals. And then we've got beings that came here and planted crystals, planters, seeders that some of us are in contact with right now, waiting for us for thousands of years to incarnate or whatever the hell's going on. Excuse me, whatever the heck is going on here. Yeah. Sorry. Does that answer your question there? But so I think it's interesting, and also onboard craft, I've seen an engine that I call a quasi-crystal engine. This thing was huge. Okay, it was very big. These crystals were about 9 feet tall, by about 3 feet wide. Looked like they were wrapped in something similar to
dilithium
copper.
crystals. Sorry.
I've got for in fun I would say that, but in reality, I've got illustrations of this on my channel too.
Yeah.
Christara did it, but they had this, as all the crystals I've seen involved with these craft had a type of either bioluminescence or chemical luminescence from the inside.
Wow.
Okay, and now looking at what our science is starting to discover, I think it's what is called states of squeezed light. And that is a way that they can keep superconductors at room temperature. And I think we're looking at something similar there with that engine. My opinion only. I'm not a physicist, so I could get burned. But I think that has something to do with what I was seeing. So it wasn't just chemical and bio. It was also probably induced to keep it as a superconductive of life energy.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So I was told this engine, when it was first, it's like not moving. Then it activates, the crystals start moving. It's spinning in this container. It's huge though. And I start feeling this basal hum, and it's spinning so fast, it's like I can't see them. They're like, they're distorted. And this individual, this insectoid, Xandar, is telling me, putting in my mind, he's saying that cannot just power Legion ships and small, it can also power small planetoids.
Wow.
So the reading was, it's not just not just does it power planetoids and Legion ships, it can also heal human flesh. That's his word, just in mind, human flesh. And I've tried a long time trying to discern the sound. Was it the sound the sound I was hearing coming from this sounds a lot like that old In Search of with Leonard Nimoy did on the Doggone Tribe.
Yeah.
You've got the elder on the rock, swinging something. I think it called a bull roar. I think it's called, but it makes this sound. Woo, 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 woo. I may be wrong on the name. Forgive me, but it's whatever that name is. Somebody out there will know. But that sound is what I've heard that engine make, and some of the crafts make themselves. So I don't know if that's what does the healing. And now we know also, so not just does it have the ability to heal physical flesh, it can also heal the energy field, the dream body. That had to have been why those people I saw were touching that other engine. You know what I mean? There had to have been a reason for it. And they often, the beings are put in my mind, they're calling that the living light.
Wow.
That light, I've heard it called the living light. I've heard it called AGLE, angelic golden liquid energy. And I don't laugh at that because it's a very golden color. I'm almost a deep when I was a kid, there was this this commercial with Miss Buttersworth, and she was saying how thick she was. They're pouring it over this pancakes, but it's a very deep golden color. It's kind of similar to that. It's very thick for a light. So I don't know how they're how they're polarizing it exactly, but for whatever reason, it's beneficial for us to touch it in dream body, energy body. It's got to have a healing, productive for our energy body as well. It's got to.
That's funny. Yeah, Steve Nobel just did a meditation on pink golden light from the angelic realms entering for healing. So that was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, synchronicities. That's awesome.
You know, and some of the light in the crystals from the big engine was a pinkish color that I see in there, pinkish, orange, that type. And it's like pulsating in there. Really quite beautiful. It leaves you wondering, like, man, why come Earth crystals don't do that? What are we missing, you know?
Maybe it's our ability to see the spectrum.
Maybe.
Yeah, we're catching up.
Yeah. So
That's
they probably are. We're just not seeing it.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool. All right. So the last question we don't even need to ask you because we already know the answer. But our typical third question is, have you ever experienced extra-dimensional intelligence? We're going to say you haven't.
Yeah.
And this is what I always laugh about when I hear, oh, well, they don't do disclosure because everyone would panic. But everybody's had experiences from anyone we've ever talked to. Maybe it's we're in a special
Everybody
group.
says yes.
Everybody says yes.
And the fact that people are starting to talk about it more, and it's not so cliche and you're crazy. Right. You know, for years, I used to ask these beings, like telepathically, like, who are they? You know what I mean? And very few of them have names the way we know it. And finally, when I'm 36, I finally got a name. And they're telling me Extragalactic Interdimensional Cooperative Alliance. Oh. And when I heard that name, I just started thinking back instantly, like, are you kidding me? How in the heck am I ever going to tell anybody that? I'll be laughed at harder than saying it's the Ashtar Command or something like that. You know, so, but they come back, very definitely not a joke. And they're emphasizing the cooperative, that it goes from the micro to the macro, what we would call the universal dimensional level. I get it now, you know. But when it deals with interdimensionals and extraterrestrials, I think sometimes you really can't tell the difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, give you an example, like the being I dealt with, one of the ones who did give me a name, Mana. And Mana, I got probably the most responses from this being when I presented the illustration of that. And it has a brain that looks like it's reversed on the outside.
Oh, like
and the only thing I found that looks similar on Earth is brain coral. Oh, and at a certain point, I started wondering, like, how come some of these beings step forward when I was younger, then step backwards? You know, step back and then others come, or nothing. And I start waking up. I wake up one morning. This is a couple of years ago, and I'm thinking about bleached coral bleaching. I didn't know what the heck that was. I had to look it up, and I started finding out what's happening to the Great Barrier Reef and Hawaii. Also, this bleaching of the coral that's killing the coral reef, major problem. Yeah. And that saying, okay, then that took me into something that's called supercoral, the coral that's being produced that is resistant to the bleaching effect. So when dealing with this being Mana, okay, was it a species that was from Earth's past or Earth's future when coral becomes sentient and takes into extragalactic? I mean, it's food for thought, you know, and I don't know fully, but it's I think it's taken us into that realm. You know what I mean? So it's food for thought, if nothing else. But these are things that I wasn't getting from the media. I wasn't even seeing it being represented like that. Occasionally, maybe in science fiction, like horror, but not in anything. And in that movie, somebody pointed out that movie Mars Attacks, their brains look like they're on the outside. So if I went back and watched it, I've never watched it, their brain does look like it's on the outside, but they were like a little different looking. But this was similar. If you saw it with your own eyes, to me, it looked like similar between not just a brain on the outside, but it looked like it had a hard consistency like that of like a armadillo shell, something like that type of hardness. You know what I mean? So that's anyway.
Very cool.
Does that answer any of that?
Yeah.
Well,
Awesome.
you've
But
given us lots of
I
questions.
don't know if Mana is interdimensional or not. I was getting again one of these planets outside of our space-time continuum. So sort of a water planet out there.
Oh, neat.
So that, you know, so this being was not just that. It takes, how does a planet of water be out there, or liquid or whatever?
Yeah.
And then secondly, you know, I'll leave it there.
So super. This has been a lot of fun, and I really needed that today. So
Me too.
yeah.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome.
You're all three beautiful, wonderful, nice ladies, and I appreciate you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah,
That's
we
so
appreciate
sweet.
you, and we look forward to having you back again. Like endless information that you can share with us. Like I feel so expanded today. I'm excited to be able to sit with all this and really just let it, you know, permeate in my energy field. And just, I feel like I've just really been, I don't know, expanded and woken up more, and I needed it. Definitely, when all you see in the media about, you know, anything like this is that Demi Lovato says that alien, you know, calling them aliens is offensive, and they want to be called extraterrestrials, and everybody's like, what a joke. And it's just like, okay, so can we like get, you know, more into what's actually going on? Like, let's stop with the distraction already. But
I think that when you both choose to do a regression and the time that you want to focus on, because you know exactly what you're looking for, so you know what you want to outline. I think you'll be amazed at the information that your own consciousness has recorded. It's been there all along. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of accessing it. I think you're both going to be pretty blown away. And you talk about things that are addictive. Finding that information is addictive. You know what I mean? And the feeling you get from it, that vibration, you know?
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
exciting. Yeah,
That's exciting.
looking forward to it. All right, I have to announce my
We'll
next
maybe
real quick.
get you to hypnotize us because, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I've had a lot of people ask. I don't normally do it by Skype, but I think I might try. And I've got a client here. I might do it with him because I've had so many people ask. I just really enjoy doing it in person. And sometimes it might be some of the inductions I do are instant, and they might be a small amount of physical touching, like a hand or a head touch, something like that. It just makes it a little more personable, I think. But I haven't tried it by Skype, so I might. And I think a lot of people are sometimes getting these hypnotists that aren't really doing what they're claiming they can do, and not really taking people to where they need to be. But it sounds good, you know. Throw on some jams, let people just lay back, and that's hypnotism. Not quite.
That's sweet. Thank you very much. Bex,
Yes,
you
thank
have some
you.
winners announced.
I do. I have two winners to announce real quick before we go. And the first winner who won a session with Kimra, who was our guest, our guest last week, Kimra
And she was
Minuti.
watching today.
And she was watching. And the winner of that session is Linda Love. Congratulations. We'll let Kimra know, and you guys can get that set up. And the winner of our weekly Share It Out, who won with me, is Sherry Merritt. Congratulations. I will be getting a hold of you to schedule that. Please make sure you guys share this out. Invite your friends. You know, this has just been such an incredibly fascinating, mind-blowing, amazing experience today that we are so happy to have with all of you and our incredible guest, Barry. And we are, whoever shares out will win what's recess. So keep that in mind too, because that's a kick-ass experience. So, yes.
I just one last question for Barry. Barry, do you know a lot about flying rods? Because if you do, we'll have you back on to explain those.
Well, the thing I mentioned earlier, the cosmic critter type of thing, and that rods actually look a lot like flagella or flagellum as far as microscopics. But I think they're a larger level, and I think there's something that exist in the Oregon, the atmosphere of this planet. You know, one of these the layers we described. One of those layers. I think they
I've
can
got a
cross
video
over
for you, man.
sometimes.
I had a video. I'll send
I'm
it to you
down.
in the chat.
I'm down.
It's my wonderful trail cam captures all sorts of things.
It does.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty cool. So,
Oh, cool. Okay.
thanks so much, everybody, and we'll see you next week. And
Namaste.
take care. Have a great
Have a
week.
beautiful week.
Yeah, and I'm just going to get us out of here as soon as I can figure it out.
Teresa, come out of heightened awareness. Are you out of heightened awareness yet? Weren't you in heightened awareness most of the show, Teresa?
Cheers.
Oh my gosh, you've been
Always.
watching me. I have incredible experiences I can't put words to. Yeah. Oh, thank you.